Welcome to Sikbaggers YouTube channel. I'm Steve. Today we're going to be doing part 2 of the Advanblack color swap on the 2014 street light back here. Now, if you missed the first video, make sure to go over and check that one out. I'll put a link down in the description to all of the parts. But in the first video, we talked about the Advanblack color swap combos that they now have available on the website. Then after that, I kind of sped up through just taking all the tins off of the bike. It's very easy to do. We didn't take the tank off because we have a tank cover going back on, but we took everything else off the bike. Today's video is going to be how to remove and install a street glide inner fairing. Now, today's also the day that you'll be seeing the new color of the bike. We got the charcoal pearl back here 2014, and we're switching to a brand new color because we're changing all of the tins on the bike, and it's a color swap combo. We picked through the 130 something colors that they have on the website, and we picked a new one. Now, what I've done this morning is take the outer fairing off and took all of my amps and stuff out of there. But to take your outer fairing off, it's very easy. 3 screws across your top windshield, right here on the inside of your fairing, right here next to your speaker, you've got one, and right down here at the bottom, you've got one. You've got those 2 bolts on each sides, and that will take the outer fairing off. You'll have to pull it back, unplug it, make sure to cover your fender so you don't goof that thing up, but pull the fairing forward, unplug your headlight, and take the outer fairing off. Now, this bike has had a lot of modifications underneath the fairing over here, so it's not going to look exactly like yours, but all the wires are going to be the same. So if you're wanting to know how to do this, just follow along today, and I'll show you how. Let's get the camera over here and let's get started. So there's only a few bolts holding this entire inner fairing and everything that's inside the inner fairing onto the bike. Right underneath your turn signal brackets, you're going to have a couple of bolts. Once we remove those, you'll be able to walk this thing forward and take it off, but not before undoing all of your wires. Now, unplugging the wires may be the most intimidating part of the whole thing, but it's really not that bad. All these plugs have Molex connectors on them, so they're just quick disconnect. And what's cool about that is none of them are the same, and all the wires are kind of cut to length. So when you put your inner fairing back on and you have that big glob of wires there, you can kind of pull them up and kind of see where they go. Now, we also have an aftermarket Sony head unit in here, so that's going to be a little bit different because we have a thumb control box that's in there. But outside of that, there's not much difference. We're going to get in here the best that I can with the camera and show you all the stuff that gets unplugged. So when you think that you have everything unplugged, roll the fairing forward and pick up the entire fairing as a unit and pull away from the bike. If you feel anything at all tugging on or stopping you from pulling that away, set it back down on there and check your wires again. Don't just automatically assume that you got every single one of them and you tip it forward and you just kind of jerk and walk away with it, because you're going to screw something up and have a bad day. So basically what you want to look for when you're unplugging stuff is any wire that comes through this neck right here from the bike and comes up here and attaches to this inner fairing. You've got to get that unplugged. So you're going to have a couple of plugs that are usually up here in little Christmas tree things. I actually zip tied them up here just to hold them up out of the way, but I tuck them down in here and beside the neck after we get all of our amps in. But these 2 plugs up here can stay. They're capped off on the end. This is going to be your main radio plug. If you have the Harley radio, this plug is just going to plug into the back of your radio. It now plugs into our thumb control module because it's an aftermarket radio, but all of that can stay. So if you got the 2 up here with the little Christmas tree prongs on them, go ahead and pop those. You're going to pull that down out of the way. Right here, your main radio plug, you're just going to push this thing over and you'll see it just come apart like that. See if this all comes out of your neck, right? Right here, you got a little Christmas tree prong. We're going to pull that down and pop that off just to kind of pull this out of the way, because we've got another plug right here. So we're just going to disconnect this. This is just one of those squeeze kind that you got to squeeze kind of hard and pull that off. See, now that one's out of the way. We got this one here. So we're going to squeeze and unplug this one. This was your headlight. And once again, if you look at all these, 6-pin Molex connector, like a 12-pin, 4-pin, this big honking guy here. These plugs are capped off. So see how they're all different? You definitely want to make sure that you plug your antenna on your radio. It's going to be a little tough to get that one out, but you can get it out. You just squeeze pretty hard. Sometimes I got to take a pair of needle nose to squeeze it because I just can't get enough pressure on it to unplug it. It's basically going to look like this guy right here. This is the old antenna that goes back under the bike, but this is going to be plugged into the back of your radio, and sometimes that guy right there is really hard to squeeze. These three plugs right here, they go to your handlebars, okay? So you want to unplug these. Now, all three of these kind of look the same. So if you look at this single one, it goes over here to this single plug, and then you've got two over here. Well, you think maybe you could mix up these two, but you really can't, because this one, this sheath here, has this white wire going to here. So you know the two plug one goes to the left and the single plug one goes to the right. So we can unplug those. And if you're just worried about not getting this stuff put back in the proper place, when you get to like these points, take a picture of it with your phone. You have a phone that's got a camera on it, you can't beat that. We've got another plug here, different than the rest. We've got this big guy up here. We're gonna unplug it. Get it out of the way. This one and this one are kind of the same, but they're gray and black, so you can't really mess that up. The black one goes here, the gray one goes here, so that's down out of the way. Now these come out of the neck and go up in here, but these are your clutch and brake and stuff like that, so these stay on the bike. Now that we have all of our wires disconnected, we're gonna come over here to our blinker bracket. Get the same thing on both sides. Get these loose. Take these off by hand. And gently pull this out because there is plugged in back here. Get your turn signal. You're going to do that to both sides. We're going to go ahead and poke that wire through like that. Up here in the front, you're going to pull up here in the front. You're going to pull that blinker wire through around your forks and just get it up in here. Now we took the acorn nuts off here and here that hold your blinker assembly on. We're going to go ahead and take the bottom one off. These are the bolts that hold the inner fairing onto the bike. The bottom one actually holds this bottom skirt too. So we're going to go ahead and pull this one on both sides and remove that skirt. Simply pull this off and down, get that thing out of the way. We're going to go to our top one, both sides. Now this thing isn't going to fall off when you take this off. Right here on the inside, we got the switch housing cover. We got a screw here that's on both sides. We're going to go ahead and pull that. On the inside of these switches right here, they are going to be plugged in. Even if these are fake switches, they're still going to be plugged in. So we have to get up in here and unplug it. I'm going to pull that down. Come back over here to our other two bolts at the top on both sides. Now to kind of explain what's going to happen here is we're going to lift this up and we're going to tilt it forward and we're going to pull it off. You have to lift it up because this bolt here, this frame here, is over part of the triple tree here on your front end. So just remember when you're doing this to just be gentle. You want to kind of pull slowly so we don't jerk any wires. If you feel some tension, something hanging up, set it back down on there and double check your wires again. And that right there just shows you, I had everything unplugged, but one of my Molex connectors got caught right here. You know the old Newton's law, if it can get hung up, it will. Kind of like when you're pulling a garden hose or pulling a drop cord, if it can get stuck on something, it absolutely will. And that's what happened. I had everything unplugged, but when I started pulling it, right there, it got caught up. So if I'd have just jerked that too hard, I would have just broke that Molex connector off. So now we're going to start taking everything off of this to get it ready for our new fairing. This kind of comes off in reverse order and has to go back in a certain way. The very first thing we're going to do is take a Torx 27 bolt out here and here. We've already got those out, save a little bit of time. This just pulls forward and off. Take the part and take the bolts and put them together and set it off to the side. Then you're going to take a little pry tool like this. You use a plastic one, metal one, whatever. This gauge wire harness here has all these little Christmas tree prongs. You just stick it in there and pry it up and pop them off. Now, I got kind of fat fingers and no fingernails, so I use a little clip like this to pull these out. We're going to get back here, lift this up and pull this off. Got that. Got one on that side. Got one on this side. And then you got these that are kind of on the side. These here are kind of a pain to get to if you got chubby fingers. So we want that one to stay up while we get this one. Kind of pull that off just like that. Now, this wire harness is disconnected. We got our auxiliary port over here, which we have a garage door opening on. We're gonna unplug that just like that. And we're gonna get that out of the way. When you're putting this back in, it can really go only one way. You've got the center one here. This thing wraps around down here. So we're just pulling this up and moving it out of the way. Now to 14 up, you got these pods, 13 down, you don't. It's a completely different install. You have bolts down in this hole. You got this one, you have this one, you have 2 up here, and you have 3 down in here. So we're gonna remove the 3 in the bottom. And then on the top 2, Harley thought it'd be funny again to just use 2 different size screws. So we're gonna change our bit out. Again, I'm gonna take these out. We got one here and one here. Same on the other side. So once you have those bolts out, you can pull your pods off like that. Now this entire radio bracket will come off as a whole, so you don't have to take the radio out and all that stuff. You got a screw here, and a screw here. Now you can take this whole unit, pick it up off the interfering, and set that off to the side. So now we just want to pull all the rest of our screws and our gauges. You've already taken these 2 out. Those are the 2 we just took out, 3 on each one, and your speaker grills. Now all we have left is our auxiliary port, which once again, ours is a push button for a garage door opener. You can get this from Rogers Unlimited. I do have an install video on this whole thing, but you just want to take this out. So as you can see, what's left is the Ciro lighted trim, which I'm not sure if I'm going to do that one on this one or not. I may do it later, but you do have to drill some holes. So what we want to do now is we want to take off our rubber trim, because we will reuse this stuff. This stuff just pulls off. You'll more than likely have a bunch of bugs and stuff underneath that edge. Got one for each side. If you have this piece of foam at the top, you're going to want to cut that out. It is just stuck on with some double-sided tape. So we're going to get this cut out. We're going to put it back on our new radio with some double-sided tape. Now, if you have any trim rings or anything like that, now's the time to take it off. This is a Harley-Davidson radio trim ring, and I do want that. It is just stuck on. So same thing, we're going to have to pry this thing off, put some new tape on it, and get it stuck onto the new one. Now we got the new interfering up here, and now it's time for the color reveal. I had a lot of people guessing. No one guessed it exactly, but a few of you were very, very close. And the new color is Zephyr Blue. That's right, that's the one I picked. Sorry if I disappointed some of you out there with not going with your favorite color, but the Zephyr Blue for me really did it. This color just reminds me of that old school kind of blurple color. It's blue, purple, depending on how you're looking at it in the light. So this is what we're going to be putting back on the bike. And hopefully I can get this to kind of move around in the light. Now this is straight out of the package, and I haven't got to polish it how I want to polish it. But once I get polish on all of this thing, this is just gonna bling. Now, before we put this back into the bike, we're gonna address the door thing, right? You're gonna get a new cover. It's like this. You can see my old one had some 3M tape on the back side. Now, this is supposed to be a direct replacement. It's not supposed to be a cover. If you put this on as a cover, when this goes up in the hole, it's so thick that it scrapes that top as it goes in. On the inside of this cover, there's little notches here, 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 and here that you can take a little bitty flathead screwdriver, just start prying that off, just like that. Now these are just little tabs, and your new one is not going to have tabs on it though. So this is your door and this is your new door. Hopefully you can see on this one, it's got these little bitty tabs here that hold that on. Your new one is not gonna have those tabs. So we're still just gonna stick it on there with some double-sided tape. But it's easier to get that off while you have it on the table than it is to do it once you get it put back into the bike. So we got our interfering here, and now what we're gonna do is just put all this stuff back in. Now I am going to just kind of speed this up here because it just goes back in the same way. Now we got our interfering ready to put back on, but we do have the switch housing panel down here. Now to make real quick work of this without having to take your ignition and stuff off, all we're gonna do is remove the 4 bolts from the tank, loosen this and slide the tank back a little bit, and this will come right off. We're just gonna remove the 2 bolts, one on each side in the front right here. You got 2 bolts right here that are the same. We're gonna remove those. We're going to remove the fuel line by pushing up on this silver piece and pulling down on the black. So if we push this up, pull down, you're going to lose just a little bit of gas in your hand. Now you can grab this and slide this back enough to slide this out. First thing I'll do is take some just painter's tape and a couple of towels, and we'll put over the handlebars like that, just so we don't bang our interfering into anything while we're trying to set it up there. If you're doing this by yourself, like I said, it's kind of like wrestling a bear a little bit. So you just want to make sure everything's covered up. You don't want to scratch your brand new interfering. So we've lifted it up and set it down on here, and what I'm doing now is just making sure none of my wires are pinched. All of my wires still look good. And when we start to bring this down, you may have to grab these legs and kind of spread them just a little bit. Look at our holes. Everything is lined up. Let's come over here and start this bottom one. And do that on both sides. I'm just going to leave everything loose until we get everything in. Now you could have put this back on while it was on the table. I left mine off because it was just more wires I put this antenna. Basically these little edges right here slide in right here, and then you've got that screw there and you've got that screw there. This is your windshield screw. I'm gonna set this up in here. Slide it in. Now there's one other thing that we need to pull off this outer fairing that I actually just forgot about, but are these 3 little rubber plugs. Unless you have the little air deflectors that are on here, that's where these go. So you just simply pry these out and push them back into the grommets on the other one. And then you just simply pop these back in and they'll stay. Now we have to contend with plugging everything back in. It's not really that big of a deal. All of our stuff is right here. Get our stereo stuff. This is all our aftermarket stereo stuff. We're gonna get it out of the way. So starting down here at the bottom, remember we had our double plug that goes on the left. Plug that in. The single plug right here comes all the way over here. We're gonna kind of tuck this in behind. Make sure we give ourselves plenty of room. That goes there. Now we got this main harness, which is our radio plug. So if you got a stock radio, that's going to go back in your plug. If you got an aftermarket with thumb control module, it's going to go on there. This plug, the black plug, went to the black hole. The gray plug goes to the gray hole. You can't mess that up, remember. So the one biggest thing that I see people do when they're doing interfering or they're doing handlebars is they'll actually kick the bike on with all this stuff unplugged. If you do that, if you kick the bike on for any reason while all of this stuff is unplugged, when you get it all put back together, you're going to be throwing codes. We've got a video on our YouTube channel that tells you how to check and clear your codes. So you're going to want to make sure that you do that. So just don't panic if you get codes. Clear the codes, start the bike when you're done. If the codes come back on, then start panicking. No, I'm just kidding. You can just go through there and check them and see what you need to do. Maybe you missed a plug. We've got our blinker wires that we need to poke back through the holes. Now, until I get the chance to put my serial lights back on my new lowers, I'm gonna take those extensions off for now and just poke the wire back through the hole so we can hook up our blinkers. Right. Speaker, garage door opener. We still got our main. Leaving the main for last because that's just going to put more wires in my way. This is our headlight. That's our old antenna. We're not using that, so that's just going to get zip tied off. Well, we've got a new antenna extension that goes here. So another good thing with actually doing the whole color tin swap on this bike is it gives you a better understanding of what's going on with your machine. It gives you a chance to look at everything, go over everything, especially if you've had the bike for a while. It's a good chance to go through, tighten stuff, make sure there's no rust, anything like that. And if you're doing an interfering swap like this, it really gives you a better understanding of what's going on under here with the wiring. I know wiring with a lot of people can be very intimidating. You're afraid you're going to screw stuff up, or you're going to, you pull a wire out of a connector or something like that. If you just pay attention and go through everything, you won't miss anything. Like I said, before you put your outer fairing back on, go ahead and kick the bike on, see what you need to do. If you got codes, clear them, see if they come back on. If they do, go back in, check your wires again. But like I said, this just gives you a better understanding of what's going on with the machine that you're strapping your ass to every single day. It just makes sense to learn as much as you can about your bike. When you put it on, don't jam it on there. Just put it on and then pull this thing over, and that's it. That thing is locked on. That's our thumb control module, but like I said, this would normally go to the back of your radio. Now we can come around to this side. Now I'm going to keep a towel in here to keep this piece of the tank, this little piece here where your dash screws into. We put a towel on that, and you've seen that I had a towel on that for most of the video. So I can sneak this in without that scratching that. Because we have to get in here and plug these fake plug things back in. So we're going to do that. These two tabs up here tuck under the fairing, so you're just going to tilt it tuck that up into place and then put your screws back in. I didn't run those bottom bolts in all the way because we still need to put our skirt back on, but I did want to make sure everything was held in place and lined up while we put our screws in. So we're going to take these bottom two out. Make sure to get underneath all of your wires. You're going to get this on over the top of the edge of your new interfering. And that snaps in place like that. So that's pretty much everything installed back on the bike as far as the wiring goes, your switch panel, your blinkers, all that good stuff. Everything is put back on. So that's basically the end of how to install an interfering on a Street Glide. Now I'm going to take the time to zip tie off all my wires, like my stuff tidy, clean, straight lines as best as I can get it. I do have 3 amps going back in there, distribution blocks, RCA cables for 3 amps. There's a lot going on in there. So I'm going to cut the camera, go ahead and get everything zip tied off, and then we'll just give a quick walk around of what the interfering looks like. So that's it. Not a whole lot to it. It is a little bit time consuming, so make sure to give yourself plenty of time to do it. You don't want to set up a ride in like 2 hours and then go out there and try to tackle an interfering. Usually if I don't have a lot of amps and stuff inside of a Street Glide interfering, you can do an interfering swap in just a couple of hours. It's really not too bad. If you've got to deal with amps and all that stuff, that's just extra wires and stuff that you have to take out. So make sure that you give yourself plenty of time to do that. So this is technically a how to do a Street Glide interfering. We do have the Road Glide interfering video already on our YouTube channel, but just on YouTube, there's just really not a good A to Z Street Glide interfering swap video. So now you have one. But this is technically just like part 2 of the Advanblack color swap. As you can see, once again, we're changing it from charcoal pearl over to this Zephyr blue. The entire bike will be done in Zephyr blue parts from Advanblack. And they have those color swap combo kits over on the Advanblack website. So if you're interested in changing the color of your bike, plus adding some cool stuff like the Dominator fender, the stretch bags, the stretch side covers, if you've thought about doing all of that, this would be a great time to do it. You can do it in your stock color, of course, but with the combo kits, it literally covers everything on your bike, from the front fender to the rear fender. You can change the entire color of your bike with that one combo kit, or you can upgrade it to the premium combo kit with which adds. If you got any questions on this install, you know the deal. Comment section down below. I'll try to help you the best that I can. I'm going to get out of here and actually start a new video because I'm excited now that I got the interfering done. I want to get some of these blue parts on here. So I'm going to get out of here and get back to work. I hope to see you in the next video. But until then, as always, be safe. Keep your knees in the breeze. Thanks for checking out the video. Don't forget to hit that like and that subscribe popping up over here. And don't forget to check out the rest of the channel because we have a ton of bagger related and soft tail videos on our channel. And to get you started, maybe you can check out this one or this one. I'm not really going to say anything else. You can just click one of those and take it over to another video.